Starting a life in a brand new country is a massive undertaking. So today, we're going to dive into the journey of moving to Canada. We'll cover everything from the absolute must-do first steps to the unspoken emotional challenges that come with building a new home from scratch. This right here, this quote from Rachel, who moved to Canada about 8 years ago, it just perfectly captures the huge transformation that immigration brings. I mean, it's not just about changing your address, right? It's about navigating completely new chapters of your life, from being a student to building a career, and from feeling like a total outsider to finally feeling at home.
So, you've landed. You're here. Now what? What are the first, most crucial things you have to do? Let's get right into the practical checklist that every single newcomer faces.
Okay, so your first few days can feel like a total whirlwind, but if you focus on these 3 steps, you'll be building a really solid foundation. First up, you've got to get a Canadian phone number with a prepaid SIM. It's super simple, no credit check needed, and you'll need that number for almost everything. Second, apply for your social insurance number, or SIN, at a Service Canada office. Think of it as your work ID. Without it, you can't get paid. Simple as that. And third, open a bank account. Canadian banks are great with this. They have special newcomer packages, often with no fees for the first year, which makes managing your money easy right from the get-go.
Okay, but it's not all checklists and paperwork, is it? Beyond all that, there's this whole emotional journey, this invisible climb that people don't always talk about. So let's explore what that actually feels like.
One of the biggest lessons that so many newcomers learn is that progress can feel surprisingly slow. You're doing all these small things, learning the bus routes, figuring out the money, but the big stuff, like feeling secure in your career or having a true sense of belonging, well, that takes time. It's a totally natural part of finding your footing, and it's so important to remember that that's okay. And this brings up something really interesting about the newcomer mindset. Once you find your rhythm, it's so easy to become hyper-independent. You start thinking, I've got this, I can handle it. But that strength, as this quote points out, can actually become isolating if you're not careful. You get into this habit of solving every single problem by yourself instead of reaching out. The big takeaway here is that being independent doesn't have to mean shutting people out.
So, as you start to settle in, you'll find that one of the most important things you need to build completely from scratch is your financial reputation. And in Canada, this all comes down to one absolutely critical and honestly pretty misunderstood concept.
And that is your credit score. It's so much more than just a number. It's basically your financial reputation in Canada. This score is how banks, landlords, even some employers figure out how reliable you are with money. And probably the most common piece of advice you'll hear from other immigrants is to start building this from day one.
And look, here's a perfect example of why this matters right away. Finding a place to live is, of course, a top priority. Well, in a competitive rental market, a good credit score can literally be the thing that decides if you get the apartment or not. As it says here, a score over 660 just makes your application that much stronger and tells the landlord you're a safe bet.
And believe me, the impact of your credit score goes way beyond just renting. It affects your ability to get a loan for a car, to start a business, or even to land certain jobs. A low score could mean you have to pay huge security deposits just to set up your phone or electricity. Building your credit early isn't just a good idea, it genuinely saves you money and opens up so many doors.
So once you've got those financial foundations sorted out, a lot of people start dreaming bigger. They start thinking about homeownership. But navigating the Canadian real estate market means you have to understand a few really key systems.
The first number you absolutely need to know is 20%. This is kind of the magic number in Canadian real estate. If you put down 20% of a home's price, you can usually get a mortgage without any extra insurance. But what happens if you can't? Well, that's where mortgage loan insurance comes into play. Now, this is super important to get straight. This insurance, it doesn't protect you, the borrower. It's there to protect the bank. If you can't make your payments, this policy makes sure the lender gets their money back. And in Canada, it's required by law if your down payment is anything less than that 20%. But, and this is a big but, here's why it's actually an amazing thing.
This insurance is the very thing that makes owning a home possible for so many people in Canada. It lowers the risk for the banks, which means they're willing to lend money to people who haven't saved up that full 20%, which includes a lot of first-time buyers and newcomers.
So who's the big player behind this whole system? Well, the main gatekeeper in Canada's housing market is actually a federal crown corporation. Let's get to know them. So let's meet the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, though you'll almost always hear it called the CMHC. As Canada's national housing agency, its big job is to make housing better and more accessible for everybody in the country. It plays a huge role in everything from research to running federal housing programs.
And if you look at how the CMHC has changed over the years, it's pretty fascinating. It started way back in 1946 with a very clear mission: get housing for returning war veterans. Then, in '54, it brought in that mortgage insurance program we were just talking about. Fast forward to the 70s, and the focus shifts to affordability. And then, the real game changer came in 1999, when it made it possible to buy a home with just a 5% down payment, which opened the door for a whole new generation.
So to really break it down and make it super simple, think of it like this. The bank is the one that actually gives you the money to buy your house. They look at your finances and decide if you're a good bet to pay it back. The CMHC, on the other hand, doesn't lend you a dime. What it does is insure that loan for the bank, which makes it a much safer bet for them to say yes to your mortgage, even if you have a smaller down payment. So, after all that, all the practical steps, building your finances, maybe even buying a house, the whole journey kind of comes full circle. It brings you right back to a very personal question.
And this quote, this just captures that final part of the journey perfectly. For so many immigrants, the whole idea of home completely changes. It stops being just one place, the place you left. Instead, it becomes this beautiful, rich blend of your roots and the new life you've built. It's a story that's so much richer because you have more than one place to call home.
You know, this whole journey, it's about reinvention, right? It's about learning and unlearning, and it leads you to a brand new version of yourself. And so we'll leave you with this question to think about. After all is said and done, after building a whole new life, what does home really mean?